Minister and reads, does he believe that blind trusts are a legitimate way for ministers to manage real or perceived conflicts of interest because they ensure that a minister cannot know what assets they own at any point in time?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the use of blind trusts as a means of managing any conflict between a minister's portfolio responsibilities and personal interests is one of the options available to ministers as set out in the Cabinet Manual. While a minister may know what investments go into a blind trust when it's first established, after that point the trustees have full authority to deal with those investments as they see fit, without reference to the trust's beneficiaries.
The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Can he confirm that Whitechapel Limited, the legal owner of Aldgate Trust's assets, contains only 3 assets, being shares in Dairy Investment Fund Limited, Highwater Vineyard Limited and Earl of Auckland Limited, and can he confirm that he once owned shares in those same very 3 companies?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order,
Mr Speaker, I have no responsibility, ministerial or otherwise, for Whitechapel Limited.
Order. 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 There'll be no further interjections. The Prime Minister is absolutely right. He does not have any responsibility as Prime Minister for that company. Supplementary question, the Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Mr Speaker, to the Prime Minister, when he advised the House yesterday that Whitechapel may or may not act as a trustee for other trusts, did he take into account in his answer that in its 18 months of life so far, it has acted as a trustee only for assets he used to own?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I have no responsibility for Whitechapel in a ministerial or personal consequence.
The Honourable Pete Hodgson. Order. 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 I've called the Honourable Pete Hodgson on a supplementary question.
It's a point of order, Mr Speaker.
Oh, is it a point of order? I apologise. Point of order. There will be silence.
The point of order is simply that it seemed perfectly fine for the Minister to speak at length, the Prime Minister, to speak at length about Whitechapel yesterday, but he's not at all able to give us any information today, and that strikes me as not consistent.
Well, pardon me. Order. I think we have to accept the Prime Minister's word, and on the face of it, it seems perfectly proper that the Prime Minister has declared he has no interest as Prime Minister, even a personal interest in Whitechapel Trust, and that's the end of that matter.
Supplementary question.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard, supplementary question.
Order. What change has there been
Order.
with his relationship with Whitechapel since yesterday?
The
Point of
Honourable
order,
Prime
Mr
Minister,
Speaker.
point
I
of order.
have no responsibility, ministerial or otherwise, for Whitechapel.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, yesterday, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister indicated was prepared to answer questions on this. If he was responsible yesterday and prepared to answer questions and has no responsibility today, something had to change. And, sir, that...
Order. 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 I think I've heard enough. A nice try, but I'm not going to... Order. I'm on my feet, and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition knows that. The fact that the Prime Minister might have referred an answer yesterday to that matter is irrelevant to today's question. The Prime Minister had the Prime Minister answered about the Whitechapel Trust today, I would have ruled that it was valid for the Prime Minister to be questioned on it, but he's not. The Prime Minister, in answer to today's questions, has pointed out that he has no responsibility as Prime Minister nor any interest in it, and that's where the matter must lie today. The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Can he confirm that Aldgate Trust, a blind trust listed in his register of pecuniary interests, is legally owned by Whitechapel Limited, and can he accept that the legal owner of his blind trust can own other people's assets in theory but doesn't own other people's assets in practice? So why does he persist with the fiction that he could theoretically be wrapped in a cloak of anonymity with many others when it is rather plain that he's in Whitechapel all by himself?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I actually have no responsibility, ministerial otherwise, for all Gate Trust either.
Point of order, the Honourable Rodney Hyde. Order. A point of order has been called. The Honourable Rodney Hyde.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. This goes back to my earlier point about a series of questions which, to me, are clearly out of order because the Prime Minister has no responsibility for the issues that the member is trying to ask. What we're doing, and you're doing, sir, is allowing questions which are out of order to be answered, and therefore an allegation actually to be put into the House. And I don't think those questions can be allowed under standing orders.
I'll hear the Honourable Trevor Mallard briefly.
Speaker, the Cabinet Office manual is very clear. The Prime Minister is the person responsible for the implementation of that manual. It is the implementation of that manual for himself and for all other ministers. It is his area of responsibility, and if there is a conflict or even a perceived conflict, he has a responsibility to answer in this House for that.
Order. Order. I think, let me come back to the point raised by the Honourable Rodney Hyde, and the dilemma I have as Speaker is really it's best for ministers to determine whether or not they have any ministerial responsibility. If the question included an outlandish allegation, then the Speaker would rule it out. But I think it's better for ministers to tell the House where they have no responsibility rather than the Speaker intervene too much. And on this occasion, the Prime Minister has made it very clear that he has no responsibility for either Whitechapel or the Aldgate Trust, was it? And that's the end of the matter. As far as the House is concerned, that the Prime Minister's word must be taken on that, and that's the end of the matter. I think that's better than the Speaker trying to make such judgments, unless the question had contained an outlandish assertion. The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table...
Point of order.
A point of order, yeah. I seek leave to table today's list of assets held by Whitechapel Limited, and indeed to table the movement of those assets, each of them, from the name of the Honourable Mr Key to Whitechapel Limited.
Order. The member's not making a speech. The member's seeking leave to table some documents. I only just want to know where the documents have come from.
Speaker, the first document comes from the Cabinet Office today, the Company's Office today. The second documents are derived from the Company's Office over several months.
Okay. Leavers sought to table those documents. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Point of order, the Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table legal advice provided on 28th of May 2010 from Taylor Grant Tourism, which makes it quite clear that Whitechapel may act as a trustee for a number of trusts.
Leavers sought order. 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 Now order. I'm on my feet. There'll be silence. And I say to the Honourable Trevor Mallard, he provoked that unruliness by an absolutely unnecessary interjection. Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Supplementary question, John Boscawen.
Supplementary to the Prime Minister. Have any ministers with trusts declared a conflict of interest at Cabinet discussions on the emissions trading scheme that will pay out $1.1 billion to foresters in the coming year? And would he expect ministers who have forestry interests to do so?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, it's been a long-standing practice of this government and previous governments not to declare conflicts of interest that are discussed around the Cabinet table or they're registered by ministers, and that's a policy I intend to continue with.
Question number 9, Michael. Oh, beg your pardon, John Boscawen.
How many ministers does he believe have forest interests and trusts that will benefit from that $1.1 billion in credits paid for by all New Zealand households through increases in their electricity bills?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I simply cannot answer the member's question about how many ministers have trusts that might include forestry assets. If he wants to put that question down in writing to me, I can refer it to the Cabinet Office.
Point of order, John Boscawen.
I seek leave to table a letter from Contact Energy, a draft letter to its customers advising of an increase in electricity prices on account of the admissions trading scheme from the 1st of July.
That document is any objection. There is objection.